Hi, viewer. Thank you so much for watching this program. My name is Eric Biantoadi. I'm a senior journalist based in West Africa. Today, I have two guests for you, a special guest. We are going to talk about DRC Congo election, and also we will talk about geopolitics of DRC, what the future for DRC if the President Felix Tshisekedi will be the next president. If he can win this election, as it's not official yet, if he can win this election, what will be the future of this country? So with me here, I have Professor Monter. Professor Monter, can you introduce to our viewer who you are for those who are here for the first time?
My name is Monty McMurtry, and I have been involved for at least 30 years in post-conflict development assistance under the aegis of many international entities. And now for the past 10 years, I have been toing and froing from Congo, where I am conducting a series of programs under the aegis of the American Liberal Arts University in Kinshasa in public administrative law and ethics, vraiment en français, and have acquired through my interlocutorial relationships in terms of what is happening in DRC. And all I can state with absolute certitude, the more I know, the less I understand. And let me say how humbled I am as to how little I do know.
Great. Thank you so much, Professor. Dr. Martin, can you introduce to our viewer who you are?
My name is Samuel Mate. I'm a professor in economics and in entrepreneurship. I'm the president of a nonprofit called FAFED. We promote entrepreneurship on the African continent. Um, I am the father of the zero capital concept. The zero capital is a concept of how you can start your business without external funding. And I've published many books and articles, and I'm here to share my thoughts on DRC.
Great. Thank you so much for your both time. We are going to start with our discussion regarding election in the Republic Democratic of Congo. As you may know, the Congolese people went in the votes in 20 December this year, and the result is undergoing now. We are waiting for the final result, which will come by tomorrow. Let me ask this question to both of you. How do you see this election? Let's start with Dr. Samuel.
Basically, we were afraid that there will be a lot of violence during that election, as we used to witness in various elections across the continent. But fortunately, no major um, incident have been reported. I think things went smoothly. At this point in time, none of the candidate is contesting the result so far, which is a good sign. So I'll strongly kind of like uh, upheaval and then applaud the organization of the election. And we've seen so far, when I check 1 hour ago, 76% of the ballot have been so far processed. And I think that Tshisekedi is coming up front as a clear winner, and then nobody's kind of like contesting so far. So I would say that everything is going pretty well.
Great. So, Professor Mati, Dr. Monte, what do you have to say about how did you see this election going?
Unfortunately, I'm going to elect to take a view with the utmost respect, somewhat contrary, because based on what I have seen prior to my return over Christmas from Kinshasa to Toronto, I have been less than impressed in terms of what is happening. Elections, which I do know a little about, because I have conducted elections under the aegis of the United Nations several times. I have developed electoral programs. That elections in process procedure starts when the last election is over. And to me, it is totally, how does one phrase it? That election should be held, if it's going to be held on one day, I, prior to my departure, encouraged that it be held over 2 days, 48 hours nonstop. And also, more importantly, in terms of registration, many people were not registered. And that takes a great deal of time that you need to deal with the local regions, the chiefs, the lower tribal leaders and elders. And I'm not going to suggest voter suppression, but all I can say, based on my limited insight, governance and power in Africa, it sets what I call a type of zeitgeist, linotype. They are extremely reluctant to vacate power privilege. It is too addictive. Power is addictive. And I'm not even going to discuss what I call the monetary aspect, which in Congo have hobbled what I call the state infrastructure. The lacking in education, the lacking in healthcare service delivery, the lacking in what I call good jobs in terms of what is termed the informal sector, because unless you're with the government, even if you're educated as a lawyer, the employment is extremely marginal. And to me, I've always said the greatest resource in Africa is that of human capital. And human capital needs to be empowered. And I totally agree within an ethos, nonviolent, that you agree to negotiate. So I am extremely, how does one say, curious. I don't want to say suspicious because I'm here in Toronto. I'm not on the ground in Kinshasa. I won't be returning back to Congo until in the new year. So I am going to be very reluctant in terms of what I term commentary. But you look at the results, and what I've heard from people that I know in CENI, from people that I know in CENCO, which is the National Civil Society Organizations, because I am totally antagonistic, if not agnostic, to what I call international electoral tourism, where dilettantes come in, whether with former ex-leaders of African nation states, to tour around. They don't even gaze to establish what I call the base point is you need to empower national civil society organizations, whether they be students, teachers, healthcare providers, lawyers, journalists, people that are involved in human rights, civil society. They need to be involved at all levels of the polling station. And then you invite political parties in terms of attending. Why the delay in the vote? And I look at what I call at Bozolo, where they do periodic results. It reminds me of being on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. It's very, very nice, very, very elegant, and the results are trickling in. I do know, and I can say this with a high degree of certitude, the presidency is aware of what is coming in before it is released to the public. CENI is not impartial, it's not independent, and shall we say, I don't believe that they're very professional. They could be, and they have been offered opportunities in terms of an election plan that was provided by me along with Congo nationals several years ago, which raised the ire at that time of President Kabila, because A, it was regarded as being effective, efficient, and it would have reflected the true voice of the people. And the blowback was significant, it was extreme, and also, more importantly, it was costed much less than what is being spent now, because we did not take into account, or we excluded what I term friction, that in terms of what I call corruption and theft. And the voting machines would have worked, or how we would have conducted it. That is.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Dr. Matty, what you have to say about this comment? What will be your thought about that?
I do understand what Dr. Mark Merchi has said, um, but what I can my thoughts on that is that African country has a long way to go. The work that Mr. Mark Marchi is doing is a very strategic work, but I believe that we will achieve those things in the long run, or in the medium run, because uh, even now most of African countries have to uh, you know uh, call for external resources to fund elections. And that's why some of the countries have justified the fact that they change the rule of the constitution or their election rules, which I don't agree with. Uh, but we have to find a way of training our people. We have to find a way
mm,
of getting electoral technology, train people that
mm,
uh, have the competence of conducting
mm.
election the right way. And I believe that we have a long way to go. And actions like, again, like what
If I could
Mr.
interject,
Mark Merch
I
is
respect
doing
what Dr.
are to be
Samuel is saying,
encouraged,
and
but to be
there is
effective
no
on the
need
ground,
to make any
it's gonna
apologies
take
that there's
time.
a long way to go. African
Mm.
citizens
Great.
or African nationals have the potential right
Mm,
now. It is a lack of what I term descriptive along with prescriptive leadership.
I
You do it right. And in terms of training, I have seen what can be done. So I disagree that there is nothing to apologize for. Africans are extremely able, extremely capable, extremely intelligent. The sad part is that the governance structure, which sadly they inherited from us in the West, and they've actually taken the worst and have utilized it to their own advantage. The zeitgeist must be shattered. It needs to be transformative in terms of what I call a shifting, that you are elected to serve, not to
Yeah,
steal,
mm.
not to plunder. And I will also,
Great.
yeah,
So
definitely. Let me conclude on this. Definitely,
go ahead. Go
we
ahead.
know that
Yes.
Africa is suffering from its leadership. We definitely know that.
Um,
I myself, I'm a PhD from the US, and I went back to Cote d'Ivoire, where I'm from. I'm from Cote d'Ivoire and Togo, but I was raised in Cote d'Ivoire. I went back to Cote d'Ivoire, but all the doors were closed because, despite the fact that I have that I have all the skills, being a PhD in economics, having published several articles and books, having taught in renowned universities, but the door were closed because I wouldn't abide by the non-value and the ill governance of those in power. I rejected that. But so I found myself, you know, with no status, with no opportunities, and I had to come back to the US where I am right now. So it's clearly that we have a leadership, but the point is that um, Western countries have are playing a role in that because they are supporting those people, and they give them support despite knowing what is happening, because they are much more interested in the resources that they can get, not in the well-being of the people in terms of governance and so on and so forth. That's really unfortunate, but that may backfire to them at a point in time, which will be unfortunate. And we just can encourage people like Mr. Merchi continue voicing those concerns and helping, getting better leadership in Africa. The problem of Africa, I was saying it in another conference last week, is clearly leadership, because today we do have the resources. Today we have the competencies, we have the skills. You have Africans graduated from Harvard, from Cambridge, from all over the world. We have competencies and skills. The only thing lacking in Africa is good leadership. Definitely.
Dr. Samuel, you hit it right on the nose that you are a treasure, and the people like you are indeed a treasure to be savored. And you should be welcome, whether it be Cote d'Ivoire or any other country. But you and your colleagues or other people that are educated externally create what I call the fear that in terms of you're not afraid to speak truth to power. And the incumbent structure, they become extremely reluctant.
Let's come back to Congo, DRC. The government of President Tshisekedi, they say that the president served for 5 years, but he was not really having much time to serve because he has to deal with 2 years of fighting with the parliament because it was under control of the former president Joseph Kabila. He has to fight so that he can take over the parliament and the senator so that he can have the power to decide for the countries. So how did you see the 5 years that the President Tshisekedi passed? What was the challenge you think that he may change if he can have opportunity to be elected for this second term?
I don't accept the first premise because Felix Tshisekedi back in 2018, 2019 drank from the poison chalice, that the elections were not, we still don't know what the actual result was. And suspicions are that he was not the one that should have sworn the oath as president. So I don't accept the premise that he wasted 2 years, that he drank from the poison chalice and he had to deal with the cards that were dealt with. And now it's presumed that he's going to be elected. I'm cautious about reelected, but he will have a mandate. And I'm going to be looking at to how many votes were cast, how many people were registered, and how was the process. And I'm going to be presumptive and just go to the next step, that yes, he will take office. It's a question of, and as Dr. Samuel said, is he a free, independent agent? I suspect not. I know not. Because Western interests are too entailed. And I'm talking about the corporate commercial mineral interests, that he is only allowed, I refer to him as a marionette. He's not what I call the sharpest knife in the toolbox. His father, Etienne, whom I had the privilege of meeting indirectly, was a very capable, articulate speaker. Felix is very, very quiet. I call him a dim light, that he inherited the mantle because in Africa, in Congo in particular, that you take over what is called the family business in terms of a political party, for better or for worse. He will be probably granted another 5 years. If I were to advise him, which I suspect not, I would say you need to break the chalice. You need to stand up strong and say, how do we go into the East in terms of Paul Kagame, who is creating the roiling in terms of the destruction, because Kagame wants the resources. He wants the monetary resources. So he is directly and indirectly creating the dissension in Eastern DRC.
Okay, let me come back to the deal you just say. The president of last commission, Nanga, say about the deal, but there is not evidence until now that can say that there was really deal between President Tshisekedi and President Joseph Kabila, because the government still rejected that. That's a word that there was a deal. Until now, we don't have that evidence. We don't know if Nanga will be able to prove to Congolese people that there was really evidence of dealing. So, Dr. Mati, what you have to say about the thought?
Okay, okay. In the US, they call it BS. In the US, they call it BS, which is which you fully understand. In fact, in the US, they will tell you the American they have a saying that if you are a president and you don't achieve the goals or the objectives for whom you've been elected, and you come with excuses, they will tell you, we've chosen you among 300 millions of people because you believe you are capable of doing the job. not coming up with excuses. Otherwise, we would have selected someone else among the 299 million of people. So if the Congolese have selected someone among 100 million people, and after 5 years you come up with excuses that I haven't been able to do the job because there wasn't enough bubble in the kitchen, and then when I was trying to start the car, there was another car, there was a baby crying in another car, and that scared me. But okay, we'll be like, you should have told us that you have, so you can't handle the situation. So that's BS for me. That's BS. Because people have been kind of like uh, crystallizing everything in the president. It's true that the president has the power, but we should understand that the president is there to delegate. The president is there to call on different skills to help him achieve goals. The president is there to get into consensus with his opponent. That's what we call governing. That's what we call managing a country. So you shouldn't come after 5 years with an excuse that, yeah, I couldn't. Even we have that in the US. In the US, when you look at the bipartisan, they have problems. Even settling the budget, they will come up and then the Republicans will be, no, we don't do that. And then the Democrats will be, okay. But at the end of the day, they sit down together and they look at US and then they find a consensus. So that's the deal. It's up to you, the president, to know how you can come to a consensus with the opposition for to advance the country. Not coming after 5 years saying that you have 2 years discussing with people. So it means that you are not qualified for the job, for me, when we are talking that way. So definitely, um, but they have done some few good things. I have some few personal friends in the government that I've worked with when I was a consultant at the African Development Bank. Some of them were there. And when I was looking at the report from the African Development, from the World Bank as well, despite the fact that the situation is very dire, we still have like 62% under the poverty line, which means that 62% of the Congolese after 5 years could not have a decent meal a day. And uh, but at the same time, we have like some few results that are quite encouraging. Like they've launched, with the help of the World Bank, a program to for a better education of people, and we have like 2.5 million additional students enrolled in primary school. They've made education free, I think, up to 10 years or 15 years. And then in terms of social protection, they have started a program on social safety net program with 129,000 family that beneficiate that program. But that's peanut when you compare it to a population of 100 million. And then in terms of the health, they try to put in place, they build like 3,000 health facilities in 12 of the province. And in terms of infrastructure as well, they try to do one or two things. But basically, the problem here is that when we see what they have achieved compared to what they could have achieved, that's where the problem lies. Especially when we know that there are a lot of corruption, a lot of corruption still going on in the country, and then which kind of like give the leeway to Kagame to do whatever he's doing in terms of exploiting the resources in North Kivu.
Okay. So, do you think that President Tshisekedi has a potential of changing that country? Congo has been long way governed by different presidents. We have Mobutu, who stay in power for a long time, for decades, and then we have Laurent Désiré Kabila, who got killed, who has ambition for the Congo as well. Then we have Joseph Kabila. Tshisekedi found a country that has a huge problem among the military sector, we have education problem and environmental problem as well. So, Dr. Monty, how this impacting Congo and how Tshisekedi can come out of what has been built for decades?
What Congo needs is a disciplined, refined Patrice Lumumba. He had the passion, but he lacked the discipline as well as the public administrative skills. And we all know what sadly happened to him. Felix Tshisekedi is well placed now because I suspect he will be accorded the victory, which will be respected and it will be duly appropriate, notwithstanding what I call other irregularities, because the incumbency, they want to take control. And I'm hoping that he will then rise to the challenge, speak softly internally, but speak with force majeure, saying, I am now going to dedicate these next 5 years, my last 5 years, to my country. And we're going to broker contracts that are open, equitable, impartial, and they are going to be what I call a win-win for everyone. But primarily, the resources or the fruits are going to be allocated to the state to upgrade the state's social, civic, civil infrastructure. That is what my hope is. And I would hope that now that he is going to be entering into a second term, he will have the confidence. I am not optimistic because there are too many people around him who have their eye on the cake. And he is being, I don't want to suggest manipulated, but he is being very spoken to in terms of how secure is he. And Kagame is a very dangerous individual. He does not take prisoners. I mean, he was upset that he only won 99% of the vote. And I say that with a high degree of astringency, that he does not take prisoners. And he is prepared to go to the wall if necessary, because his country is overpopulated, running out of resources, and he sees Congo this weak cake. So I'm hoping that Tshisekedi will then go to other states equally in saying, I need your assistance in terms of education, training programs. And what I'm going to do is open up my books and ensuring that no one is going to take the better measure.
Mm.
That is my idealism.
Dr. Samuel, what are your
idealistic
thoughts
version.
about that?
In fact, what I believe is that Tshisekedi is not gonna achieve much in 5 years for three reasons. One of the reasons I think Dr. Monty cited it. The first one is that there are too many external influences because Congo DRC is extremely rich in terms of resources that a lot of powerful countries depend on. And then Rwanda, who is well equipped, well organized, and because of ethnical ties with the Northern Kivu, has a foot in the country and um, is finding profitable that Congo is not stable. So that's the first reason that for Congo to really get onto the development track, we need to weaken those external influences. Okay. And most of them are in the country as well. I was in Congo last year, DRC Congo last year. I was in the region of Northern Kivu. And you have a lot of those companies who are exploiting the mines, who are very powerful as well. So that's the first thing, the first external power, and then the first reason. The second reason is the Congolese themselves, at least the leadership of the Congo. And at this point in time, there's no intent of unity. There's no intent of looking at Congo as our one country, and that we have to come together, put aside our differences, and look at what is bringing unity and work hand in hand for the benefit of the Congolese people. So you've been seeing that through the election, right? How the people were so divided. So we need a leadership, a new till we have a new leadership that understand the priority of Congolese leaders to unite. There won't be any significant advancement toward Congo's development. And then number three is the people themselves. Apart from the external forces, the Congolese leadership coming to understand unity. The third constraint in the development of Congo, DRC, is the people themselves, the mentality of the people, and then the education of the people. When I was in Congo last year, I was really shocked that everywhere I go, when I discuss with the people on the street, even some of the middle class people, their thinking is like, how can I get rich? How can I myself position and make it? Nobody was talking about Congo as a country, as our land that we have to develop for the benefit of the people. And then corruption is so high in Congo. I was shocked by corruption. Everywhere corruption. Even when you come to the gate, I was supposed to meet the chief of staff of one minister that I wouldn't disclose for several reasons. Even at the gate, despite the fact that I had an appointment, the guy at the gate wanted me. Chief, hey, it's very hot. I hope that when you come back, you remember me. I said, what? You see, they need to do it. I don't know how or how long is it gonna take, but the people in Congo need to change their mentality. At that level of uh, you know uh, corruption is epidemic, is at an endemic level in Congo. They need really true education in school to start infusing good governance, to start infusing principles of governance, principle of love your country, principles of honesty, and whatever you want to make a country a solid base in a country. So those are my 3 points.
Reaffirm what Dr.
Mm.
Samuel is saying. I could not agree with Dr. Samuel more. Civics and good citizenship, which I have been trying to advance under the aegis of the university with marginal success because it runs contrary to the incumbent status quo in power. They don't want to have a citizen that is enabled, articulate, willing to ask the tough questions. And so, Dr. Samuel, you are absolutely spot on with your critique and analysis. And yes, it will take time. And all I can hope for Felix Tshisekedi is that he could start grooming the next cadre of senior administrators, senior leaders. And instead of having 30 plus candidates going for the presidency, you'll have fewer. And that since he is not going to be seeking re-election as per the Constitution, he might be more amenable. But that leads into the other issue. Is he truly free and independent? And I suggest not. That there are other arms that have their hands on his shoulder, guiding him, perhaps even warning him. Do you want to end up like Laurent Desire Kabila? Because
Okay.
if you breach
So,
agreement, we may take you out.
let's talk about. Okay. So, let's talk about Congolese elite. Congolese elite, as you say, the mentality should be workouts. Congolese have to work the corruption side. We know that corruption it's happened everywhere in Africa, even in Europe. Corruption is also a problem. So, how we can really drive Congolese authority and the people to understand that the corruption and the bad behavior is killing the country and is even not even to promote the effort of the government. How can we talk about that. Professor Dr. Monty, you handle the university and you exchange with the students. What they really matter, what the really problem that Congolese elite and the student has that they can work on it so that they can help Congo to
Dialogue conversation with the elite class is this. They recognize what I'm saying, they understand, but at the same time, they realize and recognize that their lifestyle is attributed to the fact that they or their fathers or grandfathers have made deals, have worked with the government, and they don't necessarily want to cut it. It's easier said than done. And I'm not going to go down to look at the states, but the point is corruption is everywhere in terms of politics. And it's even migrating now into Parliament in Canada, albeit on a minor level. That people go into politics, they say to serve, but you go in to make money. And in Congo, you make big money. And also in a congressman or a senator, you make big money as well, which does not alleviate the issue. And again, it's easier said than done. And as Dr. Samuel said, you need to shift the mindset. You need to absolutely cut it with what I call the metaphorical sword. Who is going to be the individual or the cadre of individuals? To me, the most articulate have been the females, which is why Congo or states need to have what I call agile, courageous media journalists, willing to go out and display their moral courage to speak truth to power, albeit at times adversely against their health or even their life. Again, it's easier said than done. I wish I had the magic bullet, the silver bullet, but it's not one right answer. But Dr. Samuel made it quite clear in terms of what needs to be done, and I respect him for saying that. And that's why whatever I do, I'm a white man, so I defer to the nationals. All I try to do is make it possible for them to fail, fail again, and fail better. And when I was USA director in Liberia, after finishing my stint with the United Nations, I empowered nationals. It's the only way to do development properly, as opposed to having the Beltway bandits. And this is my cri de coeur to USA, to Samantha Power. You want to empower nationals. You do not want to empower international infrastructure to come in and do simple programs and have the nationals watch. Watch me see, watch me do as I drive around my white land yacht, go to the nice restaurants. You want to have one or two, and they need to know more than the others. All I say is that when I was in charge, all the success went to my subordinates. When anything happened wrong, I took the hit, which meant that I needed to know more than what was going on to ask the question, because I knew what the answer was going to be. And to quote Beckett, the playwright, fail, fail again, fail better. Empower, empower, do it viscerally, do it demonstrably, and then go to the government. And as Dr. Samuel may have had many meetings with the senior executives, and yes, I suspect most of them do understand and are sensitive, but they also recognize this is their opportunity to make good, not only for them, but also for their families. And in Western Africa, there's that extended family. It's my time to eat. It's my turn to eat. Why didn't you share your eatings when you were in power? Because it may not come again. So it's difficult. It's not an easy answer. So we who are charged with responsibility must show and demonstrate that we are not necessarily virtuous beyond reproach, but to demonstrate that we are worthy of what marginal respect and accord or deference that we gain in terms of our infrastructure. But I believe that we empower nationals, national empowerment. And if they fail, they learn to fail better, but you keep on doing it. And that all monies external need to be dedicated, targeted to national civil society entities or national civil structures. And the only ideally external people should be forensic auditors, making sure the monies are used wisely and are accounted for.
Dr. Samuel, do you have something to add about that?
Um, there are three things I would like to say to help such situation, which is rather common in most African countries. Um, the first thing is leadership. The leadership, we talk about it. We need the leaders to play a role model and not to be afraid of, you know, uh, punishing or sanctioning whatever level. The message should be clear. If it is the vice president who indulged himself into corruption, he should be fired without hesitation. And the leadership has to uh, send a signal that is zero tolerance for corruption. If that signal is not sent, they will not end corruption. So the first thing is the leadership. The leadership should send clear signals that we come to an era of zero tolerance for corruption. Number two should be, I think we talk about it, and Dr. Monte kind of like elaborate on it as well, is educating the population. Uh, yeah, 2 years ago, I was engaged in a program in Cote d'Ivoire, but unfortunately, the program, people at the top level, they put an end to the program because the program started troubling them. The program was that they put in place a ministry for corruption, for governance. And then under that ministry, I was working with the minister and I was leading a program that has an objective to educate all segments of the population. That is unique in the world. we we call on, they put a budget in place. We call on different experts around the world who came to Cote d'Ivoire. We worked for months. We put in place a curricula and manuals for each segment of the population, at a primary school, for police, for people in cultural industry, for administration, for private sectors, for the civil society. Each segment of the population, we design a manual for good governance and how they should conduct themselves in terms of corruption, and then how they should denounce corruption. You see, so we did that. We started doing like a pilot case, and that's what put us into trouble. We did a pilot case. We started training the people. We started training people in the army, in the police, in the government, and so on and so forth. We put in place a website, whenever you want to alert on the case of corruption or ill governance, and then we started putting the whole system in place. You see, but and then it started giving results. That's what put us into trouble. They shut down the whole operation. They closed down the ministry and shut down the whole operation program. You see, those are the kind of things we need to, replicate in other country, right? Whereby we educate, because the objective of that program was that you have to educate the one who is corrupting and then the one who is being corrupted. You don't go out around and educate one side, right? And then you have to educate all side and all side of society. And the program objective as well is that you have to educate from the primary school, from early childhood, you see. And then at the same time, the program aim as well at illiterate people. We even design manuals with pictures for people who are illiterate, you see, up to that level. But they shut down the program because so those are the kind of things that we have to replicate in other countries, where we have to educate over a generation to see a change. So, in addition to leadership showing zero tolerance, in addition to 360-degree education of the population, number three for me is promote good behaviors, promote those people who are doing good. There are few people, I want to agree. I think Dr. Monte said it. We have corruption everywhere, but maybe what is different is the level of corruption. Where you have corruption at 1%, 2% somewhere, you have it at 85% elsewhere. So we need to promote those who are having good governance. We need to promote them in all segment of society. If someone has the right attitude, refuse a bribe, and so on and so forth, we should bring them on TV. We should give them rewards, and that's the way we have to encourage good governance and change in Africa. So to sum it up, as far as I'm concerned, those are the three things that we have to look at to have a result maybe in a generation time. That will be leadership showing clear signals of zero tolerance for corruption. A program like the one I've conducted in Cote d'Ivoire to 360-degree education of society, and then promote promote.
Great. So in Congo, the opposition stand up. They say that the vote had a lot problem. There was a lot of misconduct. There was a lot of behavior that happened in this election. They don't really trust and they believe that the final result will come will be a true result. So how this could impact President Tshisekedi reelection?
It will be somewhat of a drag. And the Election Management Board, CENI, must be demonstrated as being absolutely impartial, professional, ethical, and absolutely competent. Sadly, this CENI failed on all counts, and that, shall we say, compromised the process. And elections need to be respected. Trust given, trust earned. Elections are not complicated. You citizen vote is recorded and it's adjusted accordingly, respecting the citizen vote. Anything else is, again, politics or compromise. And this CENI has been somewhat opaque. And the last CENI, we still don't have the results from the 2018 election. For some reason, they have failed to produce it poll by poll. And what they're doing this time is not what I would call professional. It should not take this long, because you have voting polls as small as 50 people and as large as, say, 1,500, and depending on the region. And then if you have the national monitors, you have the political party agents, and they all sign off after the ballot box is opened up and they agree. It's then made public as opposed to being sent into HQ because they need to be aware or they want to control it. It should not be controlled. And that is going to be a limitation. And it appears that President Felix Tshisekedi will be elected, not necessarily re-elected, but he will be serving a second term, which will complete his mandate. It's highly unlikely that it will be forestalled. And yes, the opposition may, and they will, say protest, but I suspect their grounds will be somewhat more limited. And to me, CENI leadership needs to be held account. They failed the test. They failed the electoral test. And that is absolutely unforgivable, even though the government appointed them because they were not independent. And that leads into another situation.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I kind of agree with Dr. Monte. He will be elected. It has become business as usual for opposition to contest the results. That will be business as usual, and then they will go through the constitutional court and whatever, and then it will come to the same result that Tshisekedi will be in for the second term. My prayer would be that I have three wishes. The first one, that he shouldn't indulge into changing constitution for trying to do like a third mandate. We've seen people like Talon in Benin and who claim and then made promises in front of the whole parliament and the whole country, and then withdraw from those promises. So my first wishes would be, my first one would be that he shouldn't indulge in those changing the constitution to hold to power for a third mandate, a fourth mandate. And then the second one is that this second uh, mandate, he should really focus on developing the country, going to project programs that can help the population. When he came to power initially, I contacted one of the very close person in his administration, and I had a. That's one of the reasons I traveled to Congo that time, and I proposed to them that like we are doing it in Cote d'Ivoire and in Chad, a roadshow for entrepreneurship, because I explained to them that in fact it's through entrepreneurship training the young people. So I proposed like what we are doing in Cote d'Ivoire actually is like 100,000 youth and women to touch with our zero capital approach to entrepreneurship. And that's the way to go. Because if he's kind of like relying on companies to create jobs, they won't create enough job for the youth. He has to push into entrepreneurship, invest a lot of money into people who know how to do it. And that's why we came. But unfortunately, they scrapped that project that I submitted to them to the dustpan, and they didn't do it. Uh, that would be for me number two for him to do. And then number three would be kind of like engage the country into that change of mentality, structural transformation of the Congolese mentality, and giving a hand to the leadership that will replace him. Because definitely, if he's not going for a third mandate, another leadership will come, and then he has to be in good time with that leadership and start preparing them.
Great. So we will move now to the second term of this exchange, the security purpose. Tshisekedi said that if he win these elections, he will really handle the Rwanda problem. We know that there is a huge tension increasing at the border from Rwanda, that Tshisekedi he's really equipped the military side. He's equipping the army and the paramilitary so that they can handle this problem of security in Congo. We know that the international community and some powerful countries are behind Rwanda to support Rwanda. We cannot name them here, but we know those countries that they are behind Rwanda. How did you see this conflict ending while there is a powerful country that's supporting those rebels? Monty.
It goes to what Dr. Samuel is saying on a different level in terms of training the military. And that is going to take time to be disciplined, to be professional. They don't need to be necessarily large in number, but they need to be disciplined and professional and have the equipment. And that will be one way to offset. It's not going to be easy. I don't have the solution. And anyone who does, I think they're smoking. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be difficult. There is just too much to plunder. And Kagame is not going anywhere. He is basically made his moment and he refuses to budge, which makes it very, very complicated. And yes, there is complicity, and that is difficult. It could be going right up to the office of the presidency in DRC and Kinshasa. So it makes it very, very astringent. It makes it very traumatic. And who is suffering? The women, the girls, the people that need to be educated, that need to work, and the young men who are disenfranchised. And that leads to violence. It's the perpetual cycle of violence ongoing. And then you have what I term the moral trauma. And that takes decades to eviscerate. And Dr. Denis Mukwege, one of the presidential candidates, that he is witnessing that hands-on in his clinic. And therein, why? And yes, it's being aided and abetted by commercial interest based in Europe, based in North America, based in Eastern Europe, based in Eastern Asia. They want part of the plunder. And DRC is just one cake led by vacillating, weak individuals who can be bought off for small monies, several millions, whereas the billions are left for the others, and the state is suffering. And it's long, long term. And if I could add one aspect, Felix Tshisekedi should say that this is my final term, and my objective is to hand over a stronger, unified country, and I will do whatever it takes. And I look to all people, all parties. How can we make this possible? A DRC strong, vibrant, and we are going to own our resources, and we will negotiate with our neighbors in the Great Lakes area on an equitable, reasonable basis.
Dr. Samuel, do you think that will succeed for the country that has been for decades in conflict, almost 30 years, that the eastern part of Congo has been shaped by the armed group?
Um, I think Tshisekedi is going the wrong way for me. As far as I'm concerned, Tshisekedi is going the wrong way. I mean, I kind of clearly find it disheartening his statement that he will enter a war with Rwanda as soon as he is elected. Maybe those are electoral statements, just to mobilize people. I've been to Congo, like I was saying, and then is the situation is very complex because the point is that, as we all know, African countries are not have artificial borders because Africa was segmented into kingdom. When you take Togo and Ghana, the border of Togo and Ghana goes through some people's houses, you see, and the brother is Togolese, and then the sister is Ghanaian. That's outrageous, impossible. So we have serious situation between the border of Cote d'Ivoire and Burkina. You see what is going on. So definitely there is some issue. So when I went, I was in North Kivu. I realized that they have the same situation. It is the same tribe and ethnic who are on each part of the border, you see. So when he's saying that, I was like, he surely doesn't know what is going on in his own country, because he will understand that those are same people, they are same ethnic people, they speak the same language, they have the same king. So you can't do war with them. It's impossible. And that's what Kagame is playing on. You see what I mean? So the only way to go through this will be negotiation and trying to find a common ground with Rwanda and see how you guys can work together. But sending army there, you will be killing your own people. And just like for the US in Vietnam, those who will be fighting alongside with you during the day, during the night, they'll be fighting against you because they can't be killing their own cousin. You see what I mean? So war is not a way to solve the North Kivu problem. Definitely.
Agreed that violence is not the solution, and it is complicated because the Great Lakes area was not based on tribal allegiances. It was based on riverbeds and demarcation Western imposed. And it's going to take a long time. For anyone to say, re-elect me or elect me and I will solve the problem is smoking. It's far more ingrained. But you need to be firm, but you need to have an aspect behind you when you do start the negotiation, to have the country or a disciplined force to say, to empower your words. But yes, there's going to be negotiation. And it needs to be, I don't want to say a win-win, but Kagame of Rwanda needs to be made to understand that he cannot willfully plunder, he cannot willfully exploit, he cannot willfully turmoil the region. That has to stop for reasons in natural law and public law, and as well as administrative law. He needs to be called out for what he is. He's a gangster, notwithstanding the fact that Congo has been ruled for many years by an ethos of gangsterism. And to a degree, it still is ruled by an ethos of gangsterism.
Great. So, Dr. Samuel, we know that you are economist. How the research of Congo, the mineral resource, can impact Congolese citizen. Congo is so rich. We have everything from the north to the east. There is a lot of resource, but Congolese are not getting profit from it. Why is like that? Why is it like that?
Um, we know that powerful countries need resources, and I've been telling my friends African that we Africa will have done the same if we need resources and there are resources somewhere. We will have gone and then take advantage of those resources. That's the rule of the law. That's the rule of humanity, and then that's the rule of human beings. We are looking for resources, and today I'm in the U.S. My kids are U.S. citizen and Canadian citizen for two of them, and they need resources. We all need resources, and then we'll go and find resources. But the problem is that we need to get those resources at a fair term. That's why we are advocating. We need to get those resources at a fair term with those who own those resources. Again, I don't believe in coming and then saying, okay, we nationalize everything. It doesn't work because in many of the countries that went that route, they nationalize. At the end of the day, they themselves they buy it, and then they become the new dictators. That's what has happened, and then the people will still be poor and underprivileged. I strongly believe that they have to enter in terms of negotiation with those who are already on the ground, the big company who are exploiting those mines. My solution will come in three phases. The first phase would be to create a national stronghold of entrepreneurs. That's my first solution. That we have to, and that's what I put on the table of Tshisekedi and other people, but they didn't follow up. That they have to create a stronghold of entrepreneurs in Congolese entrepreneurs, train them in entrepreneurship. That's the first step. The second step is to put them as subcontractors for those powerful companies already exploiting the country in terms of mine and so on and so forth. So they can put in place rules and laws that so and so should have 10%, 20% of subcontracting with local companies so that the local companies will start learning, right? Will start practicing. And then they have to encourage as well processing instead of exporting their raw material. The mine and so on and so forth is good, but that's why we call in economy the curse of oil. When you have oil is a curse and a blessing at the same time. It's a curse because everybody will be focusing on oil and then neglecting other sectors like agricultural services, IT, and so on and so forth. On the third level, what they need to do is to um, push or create incentives to put more entrepreneurs into strategic future area sectors like artificial intelligence, agricultural, and so on and so forth. For me, those are the three phases that can help them move out maybe in 20 or 25 years. It's not something that has to be done overnight. Uh, so again, number one will be create a strong pool of local entrepreneurs. Number two, encourage transfer of competence and subcontracting with those local entrepreneurs. And number three is to establish those local entrepreneurs in other sectors that will create a diverse economy, sectors like agricultural, sectors like AI, and so on and so forth.
The most pernicious element of the resource curse is the lack of what I call the social connection, that there is no form of taxation. So the social contract is missing. And to go further is that you want to have industry ingrained to empower to have sub-industry which can be taxed. So citizens can be taxed when they earn a good income. That means that they will be able to hold their elected parliamentarians to an account, and the parliamentarians will recognize the citizen has power because I'm taking his or her money and I need to be held accountable as to how I'm using. Whereas the resource, when you're extracting, there is not that connection, that the state is disengaged from the citizen, that they're just handing out and they don't like to hand things out. So that's to take what Dr. Samuel's saying and pushing it further. There needs to be a reconstituted form of aggregation that
I agree.
don't take out, but you need to put back in. And agreed, it's going to take time. It's going to
Yeah,
take courageous
definitely.
leadership.
Definitely, I agree with
Great.
Dr. Monty. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take resources. Yeah.
Great. So, Congo has a huge potential. If you have advice to send to political people, what will be the way out? What will be the solution for Congo to restore his reputation?
To go back to what Dr. Samuel said earlier on, a sense of nationalism, a sense of sound civics, a sense of responsible citizenship, that when you are elected to the parliament, that you are there to serve, that you want to work with your fellow parliamentarians for the greater good, as opposed to taking money. How much is enough? That the parliamentarians make a decent salary, that they're not suffering. And that is where I would go. It needs to have the people that are grounded in civic service. Again, easier said than done, but that goes to what I call the education metrics in terms of junior school. You learn to share, you learn to protect the weak, you learn to protect the vulnerable. And that is why education is of manifest importance, and it's long term as opposed to short term transactionality. The old style of the boss, the big man, is no longer working. It never has worked properly, except for the very few. You need to have a more pluralistic system. You need to have a system of engagement. You need to have a system that is thinking long term, that you are working for the betterment of your fellow citizen, your neighbor.
Great. So let's move to our next debate. It's democracy in Africa. We discovered that there is many countries in Africa now. They are trying to get their sovereignty, like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and we even saw what happened in Gabon. Uh, how can we describe that new area uh, that new period that African leaders, especially military, who supposed to guard the president, became the problem for president and take power. How did you see the democracy in Africa now? How can we describe it?
Democracy Democracy in Africa is what I call Potemkin democracy. It's merely a facade. It's a form of images, in much like the Platonic cave when you're looking at the shadows. It has not taken roots, and that goes back to what I call civics and education long term, that you respect. You respect the vote and you respect the institutions. The institutions need to be engaged. That in Congo, the judiciary or the constitutional court, in my opinion, is not what I call a neutral court. They're beholden to the government out of fear primarily, and on all big issues of property, that you don't buy land in Congo. It goes to whoever has the strongest gun or right of possession. That there's not what we have, say, in Western Europe, that there's respect for the patents, respect for handing over transfer of property with the court system. And with the military, that you have a cadre of soldiers, and it's usually the colonels, the mid-levels, that tend to be well trained, whereas the generals tend to become part of the elite. So they're, in a sense, they're disengaged from the sergeants or the platoons, and they say, well, I have the answer. Easier said than done. So I'm going to take over and see what I can do. It invariably does not work out very well. But it goes back to my original point. Education and democracy in Africa is Potemkin. It's very sad. It's I'm not saying to say we have absolute democracy. There's no such element as perfect democracy. But in some states, it's stronger than the other. In Congo, it's not necessarily working. Congo, I would not consider to be a democratic state. It's actually an oligarchy. It's actually very rigidly controlled. Freedom of expression is very rigidly controlled. The media is controlled. They do not have free expression or the right of free expression.
Um, uh, this year, I kind of asked myself the questions, yeah, and seriously, it has been a philosophical question for me, and I was like, here I am, getting closer to 60 years old. Maybe I don't know how much I still have to live, how many years, and I was like, what will be my legacy? And I was like, what about reflecting on democracy in Africa? Because it as the bold conference that Francois Mitterrand, for at least the French speaking country, that he kind of like uh, uh, urged them to implement democracy, multi-party environment in their country. And we have different results. You see, we have different results. We have countries who have cling to democracy since then, and who have peaceful election. The case will have been that of Benin so far, Republic of Benin. We have countries like Togo, who kind of like put in place uh, the multi-party environment, but at the same time, it's kind of like what Dr. Monti was saying. It was kind of like dubious, because at the same time they were like, there is multi-party environment. At the same time, we all know that they have all the power in their hands, and then they will not let the opposition express itself. And then we have eventually countries like Mali, Niger, where we have those coup d'etat recently and pass back in time. uh, the problem with the coup d'etat is that you cannot control the appetite for power of those coming, right? So we've seen for Niger and Mali, for instance, since how many years? The promise that when they came initially, they were like, will be then for a year, less than a year, but second year, and now they are talking about 3 years, and so on and so forth. Initially, they were like, all the military who have been part of the coup d'etat who wouldn't qualify for the presidential election. Now they've changed that, and so on and so forth. So that's the problem with some of the regime. So I kind of like conducted a forum, a 2 days forum on what type of democracy in Africa. That was the question. What type of democracy in Africa? Because initially most African countries were kingdoms, with the rules. And I'm like, we have different form of democracy today. In the US, US has its own form of democracy. Is the electoral college who has been selecting the president. The UK has its own form of democracy. So the question and the quest was like, how will you adapt, or how will we adapt the rules of democracy to Africa, while we still have the fundamentals of liberty, freedom, equal rights, the voice of people, but adding an African touch, whereby we should stop those coup d'etat. You see, so that's the question. It was very interesting, and then I will surely share the livre blanc, the memorandum from the forum with Dr. Monti, and why not inviting him for the second edition of that forum. So today, my position is that um, we still have a long way to go, and uh, democracy, till we understand and agree on the form of democracy that uh, will fit Africans, that will be difficult for us to move forward. Coup d'etat is not the solution. Coup d'etat is not the solution. Those in power with the coup d'etat, they will not release the power to people. When they release it, and be my witness, they will conserve it in other form. So we need really, as an African, and inviting friends of Africa like Dr. Monti, who has interest in Africa, in studying Africa, and you know, so we have to sit down at a point in time and do a stock of what has happened so far, and ask ourselves questions, saying what is going on, what is not working, and how do we make it work? Because we've tried everything. Believe me, we've tried everything, but it's just not working in Africa.
The question is, hello Monty and Samuel. I will be the most grateful if Fachi Felix Tshisekedi could be win for the second term. What will be his first priority? It will be the fight against corruption.
I take the question. Thank you for the question. And you're saying that now that Shikedi, once being elected or reelected, he should have a comfort zone. And to show that he is against corruption is to make his private books open, make it very clear that this is what I have, these are my investments, and then request that all the ministers, all the parliamentarians do the same thing, that don't say something that you don't do. Open up the books. And that goes back to when you think of Kabila, who was a taxi driver before he came into power, an illegitimate son of Laurent. But how do you make your money? Easier said than done. And I thank you for the question.
I wouldn't say that
Dr. Machi.
first priority, because as a leader of a country, there's never like number one priority. That's my belief, because that's why you have so many ministries, education, health, and so on and so forth. I strongly believe that corruption in the basket of priorities, because I would rather talk about basket of priorities. That would be a fight against corruption, showing zero tolerance, and if they need help in putting in place programs like the one I've worked for the Côte d'Ivoire before they put an end to that program. We can, with people like Dr. Monti, work with them. And then I think he has to, education is a priority, but he has first to get people jobs and decent life. Because if you don't get people jobs and decent life in a matter of months, there'll be a lot of problems. And the best way to get people jobs is not by asking companies to recruit, but is by helping people to create jobs, which is entrepreneurship. And again, we are really with my nonprofit foundation with the zero capital concept to help them create millions of jobs. So, yeah,
Micro lending, in
micro
a sense, it could
lending
be
and so.
micro lending.
The first stake will be zero tolerance corruption. The second stake will be creating jobs, and then the third stake will be a combination of education and health. That should be the basket of priority for me.
Mm, great. Okay. So if the President Felix Tshisekedi got a second term, a part of corruption, what do you think he may work out again so that he can help Congo country to become more powerful
attempt
apart
attempt to
corruption?
start a taxation system. And that is going to be what I call the attenuation, the bind the citizen to the government, making government more accountable to the citizen. And to do that is going to be not easy, but it's going to be a start. It's going to be going down to what I call the grassroots, going into the jungle and it's going to be measured on a needs type of base. But you need to build up the connection between the regions and Kinshasa via local provinces. So that would be one suggestion. And he can take comfort that I'm not going to seek re-election, so I can maybe go even further and speak my truth, and then build up what I call the moral suasion, and hopefully inspire other new leaders, young leaders to rise up, whether it be through programs that they come in from all regions to attend programs in Kinshasa, see how Parliament works, and understand the levers of government in terms of apprenticeships.
Great. So my question, my last question before we finish, uh, I asked this question to both of you. Where are you see President Tshisekedi weakness? How is he weak? When we say we can say for the 5 years that the president saved, this is where the president was weak. He should work hard in that sector, or he should work on that area, so that for the second term, if he been
Building national unity, extend hands to Katumi, to all other leaders, and building national unity.
I'm going to echo what Dr. Samuel said, and learning from the past, being a student, because, and I speak for myself, the more I know, the less I understand. And I'm absolutely humbled or appalled as to how little I know. But again, to echo Dr. Samuel, to open up his arms to all the opposition candidates for president, saying the fact that you were able to participate, I applaud you for your service. I need you to help me, because together we are going to be stronger. And to show by example, in a sense, at the same time respecting Parliament in terms of what they're going to do, and then going out and doing what Dr. Samuel suggested, into the regions, to the village by village, showing the imprimatur of the office of president, because he needs to rely on advisors. And I've said this, and I'll say this again. I always try to surround myself with people that are more clever than me and tell me what I don't want to hear, but justified in fact-based evidence. That brings out the best in me, and is a healthy dialogue. I delegate. And when things go right, they receive all the credit. But when things go wrong, I, as the president or the leader, must accept and bear full responsibility. You start doing that, you're going to do what I call, hopefully, a transfiguration. You're going to recalibrate what is happening in DRC social, civic, civil publics.
Samuel, Dr. Monti, thank you so much for your time and for your thought. I hope that the government in Congo, and President Felix Tshisekedi may have a chance to watch this program. And we also thank you for your time, for this strong word. We hope to see you next time for our next debate. So thank you.
I thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and discussion. And all I'm going to say, my best wishes to whoever is president. If it's Felix Tshisekedi, I extend to him all my good wishes.
Yeah, same here. My greetings. Thanks to you for organizing this. I hope that will be echo to people around the president and to the different leaders, and then we'll be there to help or advise if case needs.
Dear viewer, thank you so much for watching this program, and we thank those who send the questions for this program. So this program is especially for building African behavior, and to help African leaders to understand that Africa need a good elite that can change and transform their countries, not people that will come in power as a politician to steal money and to make their population to suffer. So we hope to see you a lot in this program, and for the next time we'll probably talk about West Africa. And stay with us, share this program, and subscribe. Thank you, and bye for now.